Welcome to the YouTube version of our Highland League Weekly panel, analysing all of Saturday's results from the Breedon Highland League. I'm Ryan Cryle. I'm joined by Paul Third and Callum Law, and we'll be discussing all 9 results from the league at the weekend. This panel is taken from the full version of our Highland League Weekly show, which includes highlights of 2 matches as well as a feature. This week it's a memory match with Ryan Cowie, the former Fraserburgh defender, talking about his favourite game. That main show, the full BIFTA, is over on the Press and Journal website and available for subscribers only. But the good news is you can become a subscriber to the Press and Journal website with our Sport Pack, which is just £1 for your first 3 months, which is quite a good deal if you ask me. But yes, let's get on to Saturday's results. The first game we'll be discussing is Keith 0, Inverurie Locos 3. A couple of decent performances, Callum, from Locos. Aidan Wilson, Cole Anderson, the names that spring to mind?
I think Inverurie, as Greg Moyer said, they maybe have got more gears to go through, but I think first half especially they were very good, just in terms of the sort of limited what Keith could do in an attacking sense, and when they got forward themselves I thought they were a handful. I thought Keith struggled to cope at times with the sort of runs from midfield from like Cole Anderson, Jay Halliday, and Cole Anderson's sort of willingness to run beyond his set up, the first 2 goals. And Jay Halliday's obviously finished one of them, and with the 2 of them sort of making those runs forward, and then with Lloyd Robertson as more of the sitter, kind of feeling Inverurie have quite a nice balance in midfield there. And you mentioned Aidan Wilson, and I think Craig Ewan touched on it as well when he was speaking after the game. Like, the goals is one thing, but the way, whether it was winning flick-ons or bringing the ball down in his chest or taking it into feet and linking the play, his sort of work that he did back to goal was pretty crucial to how Inverurie played, just in terms of how he was able to link the play. And that maybe was the difference between the sides at times, especially first half, was when Keith did get the ball forward, it didn't maybe stick often enough, or in terms of linking up with the midfield, it was a wee bit disjointed. But you couldn't say that about Aidan, because I thought he was good, and his first goal's a pretty tidy finish really, and then the penalty he did well to get the ball under Craig Reid, who, as we all knows, usually goes pretty close to saving penalties, or does save quite a few.
Greg Moyer after the game, similar to Dean Donaldson when I asked him about this not too long ago, not being drawn on Inverurie Locos as title contenders. Do we think Inverurie Locos are title contenders at this stage?
I wouldn't go that far just yet either. I'm probably in the Locos camp. Brechin are off to a flying start. They're the team to catch, and they're not looking like a side that's going to drop too many points. And I think already the gap is maybe one that's going to be hard. I know there's a long way to go. We're only just a third of the way into the season. But yeah, I think it would be quite a feat to come back from that point. I would say. This is where you can go. Yes, I think.
What I would say is I think Greg sort of started laughing when I asked the question, but I do think it's a valid question to ask, in that they are third in the league just now. They've only lost one of their last 9 league games and have got very good momentum. And similar to Brechin, actually, Inverurie, they're not conceding many goals.
No.
And okay, they're 8 points behind just now, but there will be twists and turns along the way. And if you can remain consistent and take care of the games you would sort of expect to take care of, then they could be in the mix. Do I think they could go and win it? I would have to say that right now, no. But could they be in the mix? Could they be in the top 4? Could they challenge for a long part of the season? Right now, in the evidence at the minute, yes. Because if you look even below the likes of Buckie, Formartine, Fraserburgh, other teams, Banks of Dee even as well, Clach, Nairn, Huntly, there's been a lot of, even at this stage, there's been a lot of sort of throat cutting from sort of 5th, 6th downwards, really. And whereas Inverurie haven't really been involved in that so much. And if you look at the league games they've played, other than Brora away when they were second best for 90 minutes, they've competed really well. And even when they lost to Brecon, things have competed well, and they've shown that they can be a match for anyone on their day.
Keith, is that, did I read correctly, four in a row for them?
Aye.
In terms of defeats?
I mean, they had that great week of beating Brora and then Forest back-to-back wins, but since then, they've been frustrated. I think they've only scored one goal in the 4 matches since, and they've obviously conceded quite a few. And I think it's like, comes back to that thing a wee bit with both boxes, but like, you look even at Saturday's game, they probably didn't, their probably 2 best chances, Ronan Crabes and Horace Ormsby's, come when the score's 3-0 and the game's done. In the first half, even as Craig was saying, it's like balls into the box, they look dangerous at times, but they're sort of struggling. Maybe when the ball breaks in the penalty area, nobody's anticipating it or nobody's getting to it, and that needs to change. I mean, they have got important players. Craig Gill in the middle of the park's a big miss for them with the job he does breaking up play. Ryan Robertson at the back. Ryan Spink was suspended on Saturday. Ryan Park couldn't play because it was against his parent club and things. So they are missing players that would improve them. But as Craig was saying, at the same time, probably still needs to be a bit better just now, regardless of who's missing, because they have shown on their day when it all clicks, they can beat anyone, but there's been too many spells and games where they've probably been a wee bit off it.
Okay, well, let's head then to our second game from Saturday, which was at North Lodge Park. It was Formartine United against Huntly. Okay, Formartine 3, Huntly 1 in the end. Let's start at the obvious point, which is Julian Wade's fantastic opening goal. Was it fantastic though? Could the keeper have done better? Is it a bit of both?
It's a bit of both for me. It's very clever on Julian Wade's part because he clearly spots the keeper marginally off his line, and it is marginally. It's not that far out of his goal. And the finish, the execution is top drawer, international class, dare I say. However, from the goalkeeper's point of view, if he's just a couple of yards back, he probably saves that, tips it away.
It's quite low, isn't it? Like trajectory-wise.
It's dipping just over an out-stretched hand, which makes it actually such a good goal to catch on camera.
I think the thing with Jack Robertson, the goalkeeper, is he's caught by surprise, and it's almost when he's like tries to move his feet to get into a better position, it's almost like he stumbles a wee bit. I thought he was wasn't particularly balanced, which probably didn't help his attempts to save it. I would kind of agree with 30 that you don't really, if you're a fan of that club, you'd be disappointed with your goalkeeper being beaten for there, but take nothing away from Julian Wade. It's a tremendous finish, and I mean, it would have been easy for him to probably take a sort of touch and run down the channel, but to just take it early like he did, great strike.
Well, because you open yourself up to ridicule if it goes wrong, I suppose.
If you don't buy a ticket, you can't win the raffle.
Yeah, I actually thought Huntly's goal in the game was a really nice sort of volley. His ball comes across. It was Owen Morris. Yeah. I thought that was a good finish, but ultimately the balance of play for Martin deserved it.
Yes, but for me, it's, in the second half, I thought Huntly were terrific, and it's amazing that the goal they score is only to have the arrears, because the chances they've missed or the saves that have been made when it's 2-0 is remarkable. They played really well that second half.
But Stuart Anderson said after the game, and I would agree with him, it's like, Colin Charlesworth said Huntly didn't show up first 45 minutes, which again I would agree with, but Stuart Anderson said Formartine could have been 4 or 5 up probably on chances, which could have been, they've hit the woodwork twice and had other good opportunities, but then at 2-0 with the next goal, the momentum could always swing, and it's like Huntly will look back on that, and they've usually been pretty good at finding the net this season, and it's like Angus Grant, Ryan Sewell and Ross Still all have great chances. Ewan McDonald's made some tremendous saves, and I mean, Owen Morris did score, but it was into injury time, whereas if Huntly had taken one of those earlier opportunities, how the game might have changed, you don't know. But I mean, on the balance, I think, Formartine deserved their victory because, I mean, as Colin Charlesworth said afterwards as well, against anyone, but especially a team like Formartine, if you just don't show up for 45 minutes, you'll be in trouble. But I think for Formartine as well, 14 points for their last 6 league games, and after quite a frustrating start, they are building a bit of momentum now, which is encouraging. On the other side for Huntly, after 4 wins in the bounce, quite a disappointing week for them, having been 3-1 up with sort of quarter of the game to go against Forest in midweek and lost, and then not showing up in the first half on Saturday.
Okay, let's move on then to the other 7 results from the Breedon Highland League on Saturday. For me, there's only one place to start, and that's Devon Vale 3, Brora Rangers 2. Ben Hermiston double had Vale 2 in front. Colin Williamson got a goal back for Brora. Rogan Reid made it 3-1. Shane Sutherland scoring another one late on for the Catacks. But they did lose the game. Gary Wood, the Devon Vale manager, very happy with the work rate and the play from his side. It was kind of the opposite from Stephen Mackay, the Brora manager. He was quite harsh on his team.
Aye, but I can understand why he was critical, and he said too many players had an off day, and I can see why, because with where Brora are in the table at the moment and where they want to be this season, challenging for the league title and trying to win the league title, games like Saturdays away to Devon Vale is the sort of games that they look at and feel they need to take 3 points from, and haven't been able to do that. So I can understand why Stephen was critical. In terms of the picture overall in the league, I mean, it's, there'll be points dropped here and there by Brechin and by other teams, so I don't think you can read a great deal into it from that sense, but it certainly frustrates Stephen. And I think as well, that was maybe evident, Stephen, in his subs that he made, like having had a game on the Wednesday, he changed things around a bit with his team. Jordan McRae, Tony Dingwall, Colin Williamson, all on the bench, but with the way it was going, which is credit to Devon Vale, Jordan McRae and Tony Dingwall were on after half an hour, and Colin Williamson was on at half time, which probably says a lot about how Stephen and his coaching staff felt the game was going, and clearly a disappointing day for them. But take nothing away from Devon Vale, a tremendous result for them, and a very good week actually as well, because they beat Turriff away from home on Wednesday, and that's them up to 15 points. And it feels like with what Gary Wood's got now, maybe even squad gelling a bit more, like he mentioned afterwards, the sort of centre-half partnership of Murray Essen and Jamie McClellan. Ben Hermiston's gotten a couple of goals again. Like, there is it feels at the minute anyway that like there's a lot of good signs there for Devon Vale again, and clearly an excellent result for them on Saturday.
The killer question, what's Ben Hermiston now on for the season?
You've caught me by surprise with that one, because I do have the figure, but I never looked. I think it would be 4 or 5.
I feel like he's on a trajectory here where, Gary Wood won't thank me for saying this, but I feel like the title challenging clubs in the Highland League are probably looking at Ben Hermiston thinking maybe they might miss a trick there. There might be clubs in the SPFL thinking, I don't know, we'll see. Let's move on to another standout result from Saturday, which was Lossiemouth 3, Fraserburgh 1. Now, the visitors, thanks to Logan Watt's 54th minute goal, were leading 1-0 in this one with less than a quarter of an hour to go, which you would have expected Fraserburgh to see out. You certainly wouldn't have expected them to lose 3-1, but they did, and it has to be said, it was Brodie Christie netting a double, David Gofton adding the last gasp, third for Lossie, but Fraserburgh were certainly architects of their own downfall. Very much so.
It's not been the best day for the Brock, and Mark Cowie must be pulling his hair out. He's watched his team go from being struggling in front of goal, but really good defensively, to now taking the lead in a game and throwing it away. it's a poor pass out from the goalkeeper for the first goal. It's intercepted. Yeah, Lossy have still got work to do to finish it off, but they do it well. The second one, he's come for a free kick, not held it. The ball's wriggling about in between his feet, and the Lossiemouth player nips in to roll it into an empty net. And in the third one, he's left in no man's land by a poor-headed pass back to him. So yeah, a sore one for Fraserburgh, but a terrific result for Gavin Price and Lossiemouth.
I'll not just say it was not headed back.
Sorry.
Then it was a sort of bobbling one, but I think I was going to say about Lossy. I mean, Ian Campbell, who was interviewed on here last week, calls them the roller coasters, and you can see why, because like they've had back-to-back 4-0 defeats, and then they go and produce that victory on Saturday, which they probably did need a response of some kind. But I think Saturday's game, for a lot of the games Lossy maybe play against sides that aren't in and around them in the table, is the blueprint that they need in terms of they were dogged, organised, they stayed in the game, and then when the opposition made mistakes, they capitalised on them. And if you can do that, it's a pretty good recipe, really. And I mean, Brodie Christie's had quite a good time of it. He missed the Nairn game, I believe he was away getting married, and then he's come back and scored a double on Saturday, so well done to him. And that's Lossy with that result as well now. 6 points clear to the bottom, which I know it's maybe early in the season to be speaking about that, but nobody wants to be pulled in or marooned there necessarily. So again, in that sense, a good result. And the other thing for them, it probably brings you back to, well, when or if is Gavin Price going to be properly appointed as the manager, because those two games last week aside, seems like he is getting a tune out of them, and he is making a difference. So I think in my opinion anyway, there's quite a lot of Lossy supporters would be delighted if they could come to an arrangement whereby he's there on a longer term basis. You were touching on Fraserburgh, and I think they're going through a sort of rough patch, and players missing and players playing when they're not fully fit to try and help the cause. And it seems like every little mistake at the minute gets punished or it's magnified, and it's like the sort of mistakes that Joe Barber made on Saturday, he'll probably go through the rest of the season and not have two more mistakes like that, but they've happened on the same day. And you know, if the first one happens and they're, say, 3-0 up, it doesn't really matter, but because the game's more in the balance, it's magnified. But I do still think with Fraserburgh, they are a very capable team on their day, and it shouldn't be forgotten this season already. They've beaten Buckie, they've beaten Banks of Dee, and they're the only team to take points off of Brechin. Clearly, I think they're 20 points behind Brechin, so trying to win the league is, I think, long gone now. But if you look at the table, from Buckie in 5th to Fraserburgh in 12th, there's 5 points separate all those teams. So below sort of the top 4 at the minute, it's very, very congested. And if you can pick up a couple of good results, things suddenly look a lot better. And away for the league as well, the Broch have still got Aberdeenshire Shield, Highland League Cup, Scottish Cup to play for, and we've seen over the years with the players they've got there, they're a very capable cup team as well. So I do think, as much as they'll look at Saturday as a bad day, I don't necessarily subscribe to it being quite as doom and gloom at Wellesley as some people would make out.
Callum mentioned Brechin there, and they got another 3 points on the board on Saturday. They beat Rothes 2-1 at Glebe Park. Not the biggest margin of victory. They got off to the perfect start though. 3 minutes on the clock when Ewan Loudon picked up the ball midway in the Rothes half and managed to take it all the way to goal. He also had a penalty saved though by Sean McCarthy in the first half. Did he not?
With the score at 1-0.
I was looking down the wrong camera there. They doubled their advantage though through Seth Patrick. That was also a great goal by the sounds of things from range. 69th minute though, sounded like Roth has scored a decent goal. I wonder if we'll have footage of that one. I hope maybe
Fingers
we'll do.
crossed.
What was it, a chip from distance from Ross Logan that caught the Brecon keeper off his line, which set up a nervy final 20 minutes, but ultimately, as I said, Brecon got the 3 points.
They did, I would say with Ross Logan, you mentioned him there, he's one of these players, there's a few, I mean, we'll come to Forest later, but Mark McLaughlin at Forest, another one, they only seem to score screamers.
It's like Tony Yeboah.
a bit like that, you only score good goals, but I think in terms of Saturday's game, Brecon put in a very big effort on Wednesday night to beat Banks D. They also were missing, although they were on the bench, they were missing Dale Robertson and Anthony McDonald on Saturday with niggles. So I think those things factored in. A win by any means necessary, really, to keep their unbeaten run going was what they were after, and they've got it. It could have been more convincing, but at the same time, you've got to give credit to Rothus, because 2-0 down after a quarter an hour, it could have turned into a long afternoon for them, and the scoreline maybe could have got ugly, but they've dug in well, and maybe on another day, once they were back to 2-1, they could have nicked something. I think the big thing for the Spaysiders now, if you look even at their team sheet for Saturday, is with the players that maybe didn't want to be there that have moved on, and the players Richard Hastings has been able to bring in the last few weeks. Although they're still quite a young team and quite a lot of inexperienced players at this level, he does now have a lot of options, and he can bring players off the bench, and he can make changes and maybe rotate, whereas if you go back, say, a month, he was quite thin on the ground. But now, and I mean, even they took in Fraser Russell he played in the league with Strathspey, but he was from Inverness Athletic. They took him in before the game on Saturday, and it's just having that different options and players who can maybe ask different questions of the opposition will help Rothus going forward.
Banks of D, as Callum mentioned, they lost to Brecon in midweek, but they didn't let it snowball. Clatnicudden 0, Banks of D 3 on Saturday. Lachie McLeod, Ian Vigers and a Liam Jewell penalty making the difference. Yeah, I mean, as I said, it was a setback for D in midweek, but this was the worst thing that could happen for them, was then, they go and drop points again.
No hangover at all. It's a difficult venue, and Clark are having a good season, so to go up there and win reasonably comfortably, I would say, is a very good afternoon's work for Banks of D. It's Jewell is it's the name we keep mentioning every week. I don't know how many he's on now, but he's
7 goals in 6 games.
It's what a signing he's turning out to be for them. At a time when we thought, well, here's Andy Hunter coming in, who's going to add firepower to the ranks. But yeah, Jewell's come in very quickly, made himself probably the first name on the score sheet in terms of the attacking options at this moment in time.
I would agree with what you said there. 30. The other side of it for Clark, Connor Gethin sort of conceded afterwards. They were never really at the races, and they got off to a bad start as well. They're 2 down, win 11 minutes, and even the second one, good strike for Ian Vigers, but we should be able to show you it on screen. Sort of Josh Meekins tries to sort of get his head on it and block it, and it sort of loops into the top corner and gives even a goalie of Joe Mallon's class had sort of no chance with it. And after that, I think it was a big mountain to climb for Clark. But I think the big thing with Clark is, if you look at last season, they picked up 23 points in the whole season. They're sitting after 11 games, and they've already got 19. So that's a big
sign of progress.
A big improvement and a big sign of progress, and especially when you look at the teams they've played already this season as well. So although Saturday wasn't the result they wanted, they shouldn't lose sight of the bigger picture at Grant Street Park.
Let's try to work out there if Ian Vigers' deflection off Josh Meekins past Joe Mallon adds up to a combined age of over 100. Maybe.
That's a bit.
You can send your hate tweets to Ryan Kyle.
I never get any. Bucky Thistle 4, Turriff United 1. Early Dale Wood header had the home side ahead. Timmy Fatona levelled for Turriff, but Marcus Goodall had Bucky back front before the break, and Kevin Fraser and Goodall added further goals late on in the game. Sounded like a reasonably comfortable win for Bucky.
I think both teams had chances, but I think Bucky probably, as you would expect at home as well, created a bit more, were a bit more on the front foot. I was going to single out Marcus Goodall for praise here, because in his time at Bucky, I think I've probably seen him play sort of centre midfield, number 10, wide left, wide right, and right through the middle as a striker. And he'll do a job in any of those positions, but I think at the minute he's getting a bit of a run up front again, because Josh Peters hasn't been playing, and he's up to 6 goals now already this season. And if, like, he's played various positions and very adaptable, but if he does get chances in front of goal, he's shown he'll take them, and he's been a very, this maybe sounds like underselling, but a very useful player for a long time for Bucky. But certainly at the moment, recent weeks he's been stepping up, and I think it's certainly from Bucky's point of view, it's good to see, and I mean a good week for them generally as well. After losing to Bankside, they've racked up back-to-back wins, up to 5th in the table. For Turriff, I think they're on quite a disappointing run at the minute. They've taken 1 point from a possible 21 for their last 7 games, which isn't, certainly over the last couple of years, isn't the form we're used to seeing from Turriff. And I think they'll maybe hope that a sort of change of scenery in the Scottish Cup and going down to Broomhill, maybe they can get a result and sort of give them a wee boost coming back to league action, because clearly the last few weeks it hasn't been what they'd be looking for.
Okay, 2 games left to discuss from the weekend. You're probably thinking he always leaves the boring games till last, but there's 13 goals in
two best games probably at the end here.
We'll start with Forest Mechanics 4, Wick Academy 3. Now, I'm always quite keen to give you the sort of like blow by blow how it played out, but forgive me if I get this one wrong. Okay, so Wick scored in this game through Kyle McLeod. Forest.
No, it's through Gary Poole and Kyle McLeod's equalised for Forest.
Sorry, good start there. Wick, though, then got Owen Rendell sent off for a last man tackle, which allowed Forest to then go 2-1 up. Jordan Alongi with their goal.
Mark McLaughlin screamer as per.
Yes.
Kyle McLeod was also sent off in amongst all that.
Yeah, I've kind of lost the thread here. Basically, Forest were 3-1 up. It then got pulled back to 3-3. And Callum Frame then scored a late winner for Forest. Kyle McLeod, you mentioned, I think that's the second double booking red card he's had this season as well. Sounded like another avoidable one, shall we say, but I mean, you got your money's worth if you were at Mossett Park on Saturday, didn't you?
Oh, definitely. I think the look of fear in your eyes, looking at me as you try to recap all of that, was quite entertaining, but well done. Yeah, I mean, Forest have had a remarkable few days. Coming out on top with a 7-goal thriller
Twice.
Back to back is pretty impressive.
Our Forest,
they're the
new entertainers.
Play your bingo card. Well, they certainly are. But to recap, the other 2 goals that you missed, Gordon McNabb and Gary Poulin got Wick's 2nd and 3rd respectively. But I think for Wick, to Gary Manson sort of said after, it's just the way it's going just now, but to come out of that game with nothing, having scored 3 times and having played well with 10 men, you'd be bitterly disappointed. But Forest, we've seen a lot already this season where their strongest is going forward. Like Callum Frame, he scored 3 in those 2 games. Mark McLaughlin's getting forward for left back and scoring. Kyle McLeod scoring. Jordan Alongi's scored, I think, a couple already since he came in for Rothis. Matt Jameson's scored. Aidan Cruikshank scored. They have got a lot of decent players middle to front who can do something in front of goal. And I think they've scored 27 goals in the league already this season. And in all competitions, there's only 2 games where they failed to score, which is credit to them in the sort of squad that Stephen McDonald's managed to assemble this season, that they carry that threat. And it's a good week for them, and they're up to, I think, 18 points already, and it's a bit similar to Clark. I think they got 27 last season, so to be up sort of 2/3 of the way already at this juncture is a very encouraging sign for the Can-Cans.
Yeah. That other game then that still be discussed was Nairn County 3, Strasbourg Thistle 3. Before we go on the recap, is this Ryan Essendon's first point as Strasbourg manager?
It's not, because they beat Lossiemouth.
Okay, forgot about that one. Okay, but Paul
It was on the programme, but you were maybe on holiday at the time.
Paul Brindle.
You were clearly watching.
Yes. Paul Brindle opened the scoring. Sounded like a great goal in this one for Strasbourg. We all know what Paul Brindle can do, but then Ben Barron, the Highland League's Clark Gable, scored a second half hat trick. Amidst all that though, Liam Shewan scored a penalty. I thought you would like that one. Made it 2-2 before Strasbourg actually went 3-2 up through Philip Franzak before Barron's third went in. It sounded like a topsy-turvy affair, this one. It's a better point for Strasbourg.
See, I'm not...
I think they'll be sick.
I mean, it maybe is because it's another point on the board, but it's this classic that I always bring up from time to time. I think it's a point where neither team's happy, because you come away from it going, we've scored 3 goals, we should win the game. But maybe on balance, Strasbourg would be the more disappointed because they've been in front twice. But at the same time, to score 3 goals and carry the threat they have is very encouraging, because at times in seasons gone by, goals and attacking threat have been quite thin on the ground for Strasbourg, and I think Ryan Essendon be encouraged. 2 of his new signings, Brindle and Franchak, scoring, although I think being a right back, goals maybe isn't necessarily what Philip Franchak's there for, but he ran clear for halfway to score, according to the report, so that's a good sign for them. But Ben Barron's for Nairn's probably now, after maybe a wee bit of a slow start to the season, now sort of hitting his straps, and I'm told his second goal, hopefully by the time you're watching this we might have the clips to put in, but I'm told his second goal was a sight to behold as well, the way he sort of took the cross and dispatched it. And I've kind of gone off topic there, but as I was saying about the sort of point, I think for Nairn, in terms of trying to improve on last season, playing Strasbourg, who are bottom of the league at home, is a game you would probably target and think we should win that. But as Ross Tokley touched on afterwards, they didn't play well first half, and then they found themselves 3-2 behind again. To take something out of the game is a positive, and it probably shows again that, as I've said a lot this season, but on any given day, any team can beat anyone else. There is no sort of banker in terms of 3 points as there might have been in years gone by, and Strasbourg are showing under Ryan Essendon that they are making progress, I think.
The whole way through that I've just been thinking, did Clark Gable have a pencil moustache?
He did, and Gone with the Wind he did, yes.
That's a weight off my mind. Anyway, let's have a look at the Breedon Highland League standings as they are now. That then is all of Saturday's Breedon Highland League results covered. Thanks to Callum and Paul for joining me. Just a reminder, if you also want to see highlights of 2 of Saturday's matches this week, Keith against Inverurie Locos and Formartine United against Huntly, you can do that over on the Press and Journal website. We've also got a feature, a memory match this week with former Fraserburgh defender Ryan Cowie talking us through the favourite game, or most memorable game, I should say, from his football career over on the P&J website. Available though to subscribers only, and you can become a subscriber at the moment for just £1 for your first 3 months of access via our Sport Pack, which I think is pretty good. If you want to keep watching our analysis panels here on YouTube, that's fine. The next time we'll have one will be 2 Mondays' time, because the coming weekend is a Scottish Cup weekend, so no show. In the wake of that, In the meantime though, you can sign up to our Highland League newsletter from the Press and Journal. There's a link to do that below the video, and that'll get the latest Highland League content directly into your inbox a couple of times a week. We also have our various social media channels as well as YouTube that you can keep up to date with us on. There's X, we have a group on Facebook. There's also TikTok as well, so look out for us there. But yes, in the meantime, please enjoy the football, whichever games you're watching, and we'll see you next time.